Now, the first thing that I want to do is tell you a little bit about myself. So, I have over 20 years personal and professional experience. I was an adult diagnosed with food allergies to milk, eggs, tree nuts, fish, and shellfish. I was handed the list of allergens and a prescription for an EpiPen. I was beyond overwhelmed and stunned, to say the least. Looking at my life from going to the grocery store, trying to go to restaurants, even trying to make food in my own house, it really was overwhelming. Shortly after my own diagnosis, my youngest daughter was diagnosed with food allergies to milk, eggs, and shellfish. Now there were two of us in our family that had multiple food allergies. It felt like we were falling like dominoes. My oldest daughter did not get food allergies, but she was lactose intolerant. So we were doing a lot of dairy dietary restrictions in our household. I began to focus on cooking and developing recipes that our whole family could enjoy and be safe. I developed a set of core baking recipes that became Cherry Brick Kitchen, a company of allergen-friendly baking mixes that's available nationwide. It was an amazing experience in Cherry Brick Kitchen. I was able to learn about the manufacturing industry, government regulations, all from a food allergy perspective. Cherry Brook Kitchen provided me with the opportunity to support organizations such as FAIR, school nurses, and community groups. What I loved most was meeting fellow food allergy individuals and making their journey less stressful. Through my years of been there, done that, and great insider resources, recipes, and key strategies. We sold Cherry Brook Kitchen, but I've always remained an advocate and a consultant in the food allergy world, as well as a member. I'm proud to be able to serve the food allergy community through Food Allergy Wizards now. Now, what we'll be discussing today on our agenda are what are the food allergies versus intolerances versus sensitivities, allergic reactions, the biology, and also an updated framework in which to view your reactions, and key strategies for managing food allergies with success. At the end, there will be time for questions and answers and a special Valentine's Day bonus. Now, one thing we can feel when we have food allergies is isolated. It's important to know that you're not alone. There's over 32 million people with food allergies in the United States, 1 in 10 adults, 1 in 13 children. That works out to be about 2 children in every classroom. Now, food allergies have doubled 15% from 1997 to 2011. That's 50%. Peanut allergies have tripled from 1997 to 2008. So you can see by the numbers, if you have food allergies, you're not alone. And if you don't have food allergies, chances are you do know somebody who has them. A common misconception is between food allergies, food sensitivities, and food intolerances. What you need to know is food allergies are in the immune system, and they're an IgE-mediated response. We'll go more into the IgE-mediated response later in the webinar, but for now, know that it's an immune system response, and it can be life-threatening. Food sensitivities are also part of our immune system reaction, but they are not life-threatening. Now, food intolerances, which is the third category, sometimes people use interchangeably, is a lack of enzymes, usually in the digestive system. A common example is having some dairy product, not having the enzymes to break down lactose, taking a lactate, providing the enzymes for the stomach, and then being able to eat it. So food intolerances are in the digestive system, and they also are not life-threatening. So that's the main difference between the three. With food allergies, the real highlight there is that it can be life-threatening. And when we talk about food allergies, what are the top allergens? The top 8 allergens are dairy, wheat, fish, soy, eggs, peanuts, shellfish, and tree nuts. Sesame is the 9th allergen that they're currently put in legislation for food manufacturers to put on labels. I anticipate this will happen probably within the next year. Now, the additional 10% of allergens can be any food that's out there that exists. You can develop a food allergy for it. There is no known cure at this time, and strict avoidance of your allergen is the only safe course of action. Now, when we talk about the food allergies, a common question people have is, why are they so prevalent now when they weren't before? One of the things is that you're in too much of a aseptic environment. Opposing is our environment is too filled with chemicals. Either way, It is a response of our immune system that's overreacting to our environment. Then we can move on to allergic reactions. The two most common tests an allergist will conduct for food allergies are a skin prick test or a blood test to look for levels of IgE present in your blood. Now, what is IgE? We mentioned it before. When we eat a food, our immune system will overreact and identify a food protein as an invader. Then IgE antibodies are released in your body and they go to cells causing histamines to be released. This causes inflammations and allergic reactions. Some of the reactions can be mild, hives, a mild stomach upset, rash, itchy skin. Severe symptoms can be trouble breathing, drop in blood pressure, and even fainting. The most serious type of reaction is called anaphylaxis, and that can be life-threatening. There are a lot of symptoms involved with a food allergic reaction. I found there's a helpful way to view these and keep things sort of in a systematic order. Categorizing the reactions by the systems of the body is extremely helpful. If we think of the systems as skin, gut, circulatory, and respiratory. With skin, that would be hives, rash, mild swelling. In your gut, that could be bloating, vomiting, diarrhea, pain. In your circulatory system, it can be a drop in blood pressure or feeling floppy. Respiratory is coughing, wheezing, trouble breathing, and even a change in your voice, because the voice box sits on top of your airway. So something to keep aware of is if you hear a change in your voice or a change in a baby's cry, that's an internal considered severe reaction, and look out for that. Now, the external versus internal reactions. For example, if you have a rash of hives, that's external. They're usually more minor than the internal reactions. For instance, trouble breathing, coughing, those drops in blood pressure are internal. So if you're having an external reaction, that's usually on the mild side. An internal reaction, we're moving more towards a severe reaction. And you want to pay attention to all your symptoms, because one allergic reaction is not indicative of the next. If you have a reaction, let's say to dairy, and it's mild and you have hives, it doesn't mean that the rest of your reactions will always be hives. The next one could be a severe one. There's no way to predict. So you always want to be prepared. Now, I had mentioned that the most severe reaction is anaphylaxis. Now, what you need to know for anaphylaxis, your doctor will give you a prescription for an auto-injector of epinephrine, which is adrenaline, and this will reverse a reaction and save your life. You want to make sure that you have your auto-injector with you at all times. There are 3 different manufacturers who make these EpiPens, and there's a child version and an adult version based on weight. You want to look at your auto-injector, check the expiration dates, mark it on your calendar so you know when to renew it. Also, they're temperature sensitive, so you want to look at them and make sure you're always keeping them in the right temperature environment. Now, one thing I always like to do is make sure to have 2 EpiPens at all times, because once you go into an anaphylactic reaction, one of those severe symptoms we talked about, you want to be able to administer the auto-injector. Then you want to either call an ambulance or get to a hospital or ER. If within about 20 minutes you start to experience symptoms again, severe, or the ones that you had rolling back in, you may need to administer another dose of epinephrine. That's why you would need to use 2. That's called a biphasic reaction. So always having 2 on hand is important. One other important thing to note, if you're having severe reactions and you're going into anaphylaxis, Benadryl is not a substitute for epinephrine. They are not interchangeable. The epinephrine will save your life in a severe anaphylactic reaction. Benadryl may not. Now, one other thing that I personally found helpful, I was terrified of the auto-injector. I didn't know if I'd be able to use it. It looked scary. When it expired, I actually pulled out an orange and used the auto-injector on an orange. It gave me a real sense of the feel of what it would feel like to press the auto-injector in. I could hear the sound, there was a click, and there actually was a little kickback, and I could feel the medicine going into the orange. It actually made me much more comfortable and confident that I could use the auto-injector on myself or somebody else if need be. One thing to note, it is a needle, it's a sharp, there is medicine. So if you do decide to do this, please take care. Now we've talked about the allergens and the biology behind it, and of course, anaphylaxis and being prepared. One thing people don't talk a lot about is the